Okay, so here's something strange. 30 days ago, if I asked you to describe your morning in English without stopping, without checking a word in your head first, how would that have felt?
Honestly, terrifying. 30 days ago, I would have frozen after two sentences.
Right. But today, right now, before we even start this episode, I want you listening to notice something. Notice how your ears feel when you hear us talking. Does it feel different than day one? Faster? Easier? Because something has quietly changed inside your brain over the last month. And today, on our very last day together, we're going to talk about exactly what that change really is and how you keep it growing even after we say goodbye.
Welcome back to Rose and Jack Everyday English. We're so happy to have you again, and honestly, a little emotional too, because this is day 30. This is the final day of our 30-day B1 to B2 challenge.
30 days ago, we started this journey together. And today, we're not just talking about a topic, we're talking about you, about how far you've come, and about what real English conversation actually looks like once you reach B2. Today's topic is simple. It's a full conversation review, tips, tricks, and honest talk between two friends about speaking English naturally.
And Rose, before we go further, I just want to say this to everyone listening. If you're hearing this sentence right now and you understand it without translating it in your head, that already tells you something. You are not the same learner who clicked on day one.
Okay, Jack, so let's just talk today. Really talk. Not stories, not lessons, just two friends having a conversation like we always do. Except today we're also kind of celebrating.
I like that. No big story today, just us, talking naturally, the way we always wanted listeners to learn to talk.
Exactly. So let's start with something simple. When you think back to day one of this challenge, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Honestly, I remember thinking, wow, this is going to be hard to keep up every single day. Not because English is hard, but because talking naturally, without stopping, without planning every sentence, that felt hard.
See, that's interesting because for me, it wasn't about the difficulty. It was about the silence. I used to notice these long pauses in conversations, these moments where I didn't know what to say next. And that silence used to feel so uncomfortable.
Ugh, the silence, yes. I think a lot of our listeners know exactly what you mean. That moment when someone asks you something in English and your brain just goes blank for 2 seconds.
Exactly. And I think that's actually a really good place to start today because a huge part of moving from B1 to B2 isn't learning new words, it's learning how to sit inside that silence without panicking. It's learning that a short pause is normal, even for native speakers.
That's true. I remember one of our earlier episodes, we talked about filler words. Things like, well, actually, I mean. And I think that's one of the biggest tools people forget about.
Filler words are honestly underrated. People think fluent English means speaking fast with perfect grammar. But real fluent English, everyday English, is full of these small connecting words that give your brain time to think while still keeping the conversation alive.
So let's actually demonstrate that a little bit for our listeners. Rose, imagine I ask you something a bit unexpected right now. What was the hardest part of doing this challenge with me for 30 days straight?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I think, honestly, the hardest part was staying consistent. Showing up every single day, even on days when I didn't feel like talking that much.
See, listeners, did you notice that? Rose used, oh, that's a good question, actually, and honestly, and all in one small answer. And none of that sounded robotic. It sounded completely natural, because that's literally how real people talk.
Exactly, and that's the whole secret of B2 speaking. It's not about sounding like a textbook, it's about sounding like a real person thinking out loud.
Okay, so let's talk tips now. Real practical stuff. If someone is still at B1 level and they're scared to speak, what would you personally tell them?
I would tell them stop trying to translate. That's honestly the biggest mistake I see. People think in their own language first, then translate it, and by the time they finish translating, the conversation has already moved on.
Yes, and I would add something to that. Try to think in small chunks, not full sentences. Instead of building the perfect grammatical sentence in your head, Just start talking with the first natural phrase that comes to mind, like, I think, or in my opinion, or actually, you know what?
Those little starter phrases are honestly magic. They give you a running start, and while you're saying them, your brain automatically prepares the rest of the sentence.
Right, and speaking of starter phrases, let's talk about something we haven't really discussed directly in this challenge, which is tone. Not just words, but how you say them.
Oh, tone is huge. I remember early in my own English journey, I used to speak with a very flat tone because I was so focused on getting the grammar right that I forgot to actually sound interested in what I was saying.
That's such a common thing, though. When you're concentrating hard on correct English, your voice becomes flat, almost robotic. And that actually makes native speakers think you're bored or confused, even if you're not.
Exactly. So, one small tip for our listeners, try adding a little energy into your voice, even practicing alone. Say things like, "That's amazing," or "Wait, really?" or "I totally agree," with actual emotion in your voice, not just the correct words.
I love that tip. And here's another one connected to that. Reactions. In real conversations, we react constantly. We say things like, no way, seriously? That's so true. Exactly. These reactions keep the conversation alive and show the other person you're actually listening.
Reactions are honestly one of the fastest ways to sound more natural. You don't even need complicated grammar for that, just short, warm reactions.
Okay, Rose, let's shift a little. Let's talk about listening, because speaking is only half this journey. What's your best tip for someone trying to understand fast, natural English, like how we talk right now?
I would say stop trying to understand every single word. B1 learners often panic if they miss one word, and then they lose the whole sentence because they're stuck thinking about that one word.
That's such a good point. Understanding is more about catching the general meaning and filling in small gaps using context, not translating word by word in real time.
Exactly. And that's actually one reason why podcasts like ours work so well for improving listening skills. You're not reading subtitles, you're not pausing every 5 seconds, you're training your brain to catch meaning naturally, the same way a child learns their first language.
True, and that connects perfectly to something we said many times in this challenge. Real English fluency, everyday English conversation, doesn't come from studying grammar books alone. It comes from exposure, from listening again and again until your brain starts predicting language naturally.
Which is honestly the whole purpose behind this 30-day challenge. We wanted people to not just learn English, but to actually practice English speaking through real listening every single day, little by little.
And they think that's something worth celebrating today, because reaching B2 level isn't about memorizing a certain number of words. It's about your brain reaching a point where English starts to feel automatic, not forced.
Absolutely. And speaking of automatic, let's talk about something really practical now. Small talk, because so many learners can discuss grammar rules perfectly, but freeze during simple small talk, like at work or with neighbors or even here in a podcast.
Small talk is honestly an art. Let's do something fun. Rose, let's actually show our listeners a quick example of natural small talk, like we're meeting for the first time today.
Okay, I love this idea. Let's do it.
Hey Rose, long time no see. How have you been?
Oh my gosh, I know, right? It's been forever. I've been good. Honestly, a bit busy, but good. What about you?
Same here, busy but good. Actually, I heard you finished the huge project recently. How did that go?
It went really well, actually. Thank you for asking. It was stressful in the beginning, but I'm honestly proud of how it turned out.
That's great to hear. See, listeners, notice how natural that sounded. No big vocabulary, no complicated grammar, just warm human conversation filled with small reactions, follow up questions, and honest answers.
Exactly. And that's honestly the biggest mindset shift between B1 and B2 speakers. B1 speakers often feel like every mistake will be judged. B2 speakers understand that conversation is about connection, not perfection.
So true. And I think that mindset shift is honestly bigger than any grammar rule we've taught in this whole challenge.
Definitely. Okay, let's talk about something practical again. If someone wants to keep improving after today, after this challenge ends, what would you personally recommend?
I would say keep talking to yourself literally. Describe your day out loud in English, while cooking, while walking, while getting ready in the morning. It sounds funny, but it trains your brain to produce English automatically, without pressure.
I completely agree. And I would add, keep listening to real conversations, not just structured English lessons. Podcasts, interviews, casual conversations.
And of course, keep practicing speaking with real people whenever possible, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Comfort comes after practice, not before it.
Exactly. And honestly, that's something I want every listener to remember today. English fluency isn't a fixed point you arrive at. It's something you keep building, little conversation by little conversation.
Beautifully said, Rose. Okay, before we move to the review section, let's talk about something emotional for a second. How do you feel, actually feel, doing this last episode together?
Honestly, Jack, I feel really proud, not just of us, but of everyone who showed up every single day for 30 days to listen, to practice, to push themselves out of their comfort zone.
I feel the exact same way. And I want our listeners to understand something important. If you listen to this challenge from day 1 to day 30, your English brain today is genuinely different from 30 days ago. You've trained your ears, you've trained your speaking rhythm, you've trained your confidence.
And that, honestly, is what B2 level really means. It's not a perfect score on a test. It's the ability to sit in a real conversation, like this one, and follow it naturally, react naturally, and speak without freezing.
Exactly. So if you're listening right now and you understood everything we just said, take a moment and really feel that. You are officially a B2 level English speaker now, and you got there through everyday conversation, not through memorizing rules.
I love that so much. Okay, Jack, I think it's time we move into our final language review together. One last time.
All right, everyone. So now, like we do at the end of many episodes, Rose and I want to show you a full, natural conversation using everything we just talked about, so you can hear how it actually sounds when two people speak comfortably at B2 level.
Yes, and listen carefully. Notice the fillers, notice the reactions. Notice how we don't speak in perfect textbook sentences, but everything is still completely clear and natural.
Okay, let's start. So, Rose, I've actually been thinking about something. Now that this challenge is finishing, what are you planning to focus on next with your English?
Ugh, honestly, I think I want to focus more on watching movies without subtitles. I've been avoiding that for a while because it felt too fast, but I think I'm actually ready for it now.
That's a great goal. Movies are tricky, though, because actors sometimes speak really quickly or use a lot of slang. Have you thought about starting with something easier, maybe a show with clear dialogue first?
That's actually a really good point. Maybe I'll start with something simple, like a comedy show, and slowly move to faster-paced dramas later. What about you? What's your next step?
I think for me, it's speaking with more people directly, like joining conversation groups online. I've realized that even after this challenge, I still get a little nervous speaking with strangers.
That's completely normal, though, and honestly, even confident speakers still feel nervous sometimes. I think the difference now is that nervousness doesn't stop you anymore. It just makes the conversation a little exciting.
That's true. Exciting is a good way to put it. Actually, that reminds me. Do you remember how nervous we both sounded on day 1 of this challenge?
Oh my gosh, don't remind me. I think I spoke so carefully back then, like every word had to be perfect.
Exactly. And now listen to us. We're just talking, reacting, laughing a little, disagreeing sometimes, and it all feels completely natural.
It really does. And I think that's honestly the best proof for our listeners that this kind of everyday conversation practice genuinely works.
Absolutely. Okay, one more quick example before we move on. Rose, imagine someone asks you, so what do you think is the secret to learning English fast? How would you naturally respond? Right now, without thinking too much.
Honestly, I would say there's no real secret. It's just consistency. Like showing up every day, even for 10 minutes, matters way more than studying for 5 hours once a week.
I completely agree with that. Consistency beats intensity every single time.
Exactly. And see, listeners, that whole exchange just now, that's real English conversation. No big vocabulary, no complicated structures, just clear thinking expressed clearly and naturally.
That's the whole goal of this podcast, and honestly, of this entire challenge.
Okay, now let's become teachers for a few minutes and review some useful expressions from today's episode.
First one, honestly. We use this many times today. It means you're speaking truthfully or adding real emphasis to your opinion. For example, honestly, I was really nervous before this episode.
A common mistake is using honestly at the very start of every single sentence, which sounds repetitive. A more natural way is to use it occasionally, mixing it with other expressions.
Next expression. That's a good point. We use this to politely agree with someone or acknowledge their idea before continuing the conversation. For example, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about it that way.
A common mistake is only saying yes or okay when someone shares an idea, which can sound a little flat. Adding "that's a good point" makes your response sound warmer and more engaged.
Third expression. I think versus in my opinion. Both are used to share personal thoughts, but I think sounds more casual and natural, while in my opinion sounds slightly more formal. For example, I think we should start earlier tomorrow.
A common mistake is overusing "in my opinion" in casual conversations, which can sound stiff. In everyday English conversation, "I think" usually sounds more natural.
Fourth expression. No way or seriously. Both show surprise in a casual conversation. For example, no way, you finished the whole challenge in one sitting?
A common mistake is using more formal expressions like "I am very surprised" in casual conversations, which sounds unnatural. "No way" and "seriously" sound much more like everyday spoken English.
Fifth expression. Keep showing up. We use this to describe consistency today. For example, the secret to fluency is simply to keep showing up every day.
This phrase naturally combines two ideas, continuing in action and doing it regularly, which makes it perfect for talking about habits and consistency.
Sixth expression. Freeze up. We use this to describe suddenly feeling unable to speak or think, usually from nervousness. For example, I completely froze up during my first English interview.
A common mistake is saying "I stopped" instead, which doesn't fully capture the nervous, sudden feeling. "Freeze up" expresses that specific emotional experience much better.
Seventh expression, get comfortable with something. We use this to describe becoming used to a situation over time. For example, it took me a while to get comfortable with speaking English on camera.
This is a great everyday phrase and much more natural than saying "I became familiar with," which sounds more academic and less like natural spoken English.
And our final expression today, take a moment. We use this to invite someone to pause and reflect. For example, take a moment and think about how far you've come this month.
This phrase works beautifully in emotional or reflective conversations, exactly like the one we're having today.
Now let's talk about a few common mistakes B1 learners often make in real conversations.
First mistake. Incorrect. "I am agree with you." Correct. "I agree with you." Many learners add "am" before "agree," but "agree" is already a full verb on its own.
Second mistake. Incorrect. I have 25 years. Correct. I am 25 years old. In English, age uses the verb be, not have, unlike many other languages.
Third mistake. Incorrect. "I'm boring today." Correct. "I'm bored today." Boring describes something that causes boredom, while bored describes how you feel.
Fourth mistake. Incorrect, since 3 days. Correct, for 3 days. We use for with a length of time and since with a specific starting point, like since Monday.
These mistakes are extremely common, even at B1 to B2 level. But the good news is, once you notice them, they're actually very easy to correct with practice.
All right, everyone, here's your final comment challenge for this entire 30-day challenge.
We want you to write one comment below in English answering this question. What is one specific way your English has improved since day one of this challenge?
It could be your listening, your confidence, your speaking speed, or even just how comfortable you feel with silence during conversations.
Take a moment, think about it honestly, and write it in the comments in full English sentences. We genuinely want to read every single one of them.
And don't worry about writing it perfectly. Just write it naturally, the same way you've been speaking naturally throughout this challenge.
Thank you, friends, for listening to today's episode. And honestly, thank you for listening every single day for this entire challenge. I hope you learned something from it, not just about English, but about yourself and how capable you really are.
This is officially the last episode of our 30-day B1 to B2 challenge, and we genuinely mean this from our hearts. We are so proud of every single one of you who showed up, listened, practiced, and pushed through even on tired days.
If you've been with us since day one, we truly believe you are now speaking, thinking, and understanding at a real B2 level. And that's not a small achievement. That's something to genuinely celebrate today.
This might be our final day, but honestly, this is not really goodbye. This is just the beginning of your next chapter in English, and we truly hope you continue speaking English every single day, naturally, confidently, and fearlessly.
Thank you again from both of us for spending this entire month with Rose and Jack Everyday English. Subscribe if you haven't already. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and remember, you've already come so much further than you think. See you very soon, friends.